Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge of the Defiant Dawn, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship was not big or fancy. It was just a simple research vessel with 42 crew members. They had been traveling near the border for 3 months now, looking at new planets and mapping space. The border was a place nobody talked about much. On one side was human space, with Earth and all the colonies. On the other side was the Caltharian Empire. The two sides had not spoken to each other for over 200 years. Nobody really knew why anymore. "Captain," said Lieutenant Boram from her station, "I'm getting some strange readings from the navigation system." Boram was the ship's engineer. She knew every part of the Defiant Dawn better than anyone else. Hyunwoo walked over to look at her screen. The numbers were jumping around in ways that made no sense. "What do you think it is?" "I don't know yet. Maybe space dust or solar wind from that red star we passed yesterday." Boram touched different buttons, trying to make the readings normal again. Dr. Tae-jin looked up from his own station. He was the ship's main scientist and the person who spoke the most languages. "Captain, I think we should be careful. My sensors are picking up some kind of energy wave coming this way." Before Hyunwoo could answer, the ship started to shake. The lights went dim for a moment, then came back on. Everyone grabbed onto something to stay standing. "What was that?" asked Commander Woo-jin. He was in charge of keeping the ship safe. He had been a soldier before joining the research team. "I think it was a quantum storm," said Tae-jin, looking at his readings. "A big one. I've never seen anything like this before." The storm hit them like a giant wave. The ship spun and twisted through space. Hyunwoo tried to give orders, but the noise was too loud. Sparks flew from some of the control panels. The main screen went black, then showed only static. Boram was working fast, her hands moving over the controls. "The navigation system is completely broken. The quantum storm damaged the main computer. Can you fix it?" Hyunwoo had to shout. Over the noise, "I'm trying, but we're moving really fast now. The storm is pushing us somewhere." The shaking went on for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, everything became quiet again. The lights came back on properly. The main screen showed stars again, but they were different stars. None of the crew recognized the star patterns they were seeing. "Where are we?" asked Hyunwoo. Tae-jin was checking his instruments. His face went very pale. "Captain, according to these readings, we've crossed the border. We're in Caltharian Empire space." Everyone on the bridge became very quiet. Being in Empire space was not supposed to happen. Ever. "Are you sure?" asked Hyunwoo. "Yes, sir. The star patterns match old Empire charts from 200 years ago. We're definitely on their side of the border." Commander Woo-jin stepped forward. "Captain, we need to leave right now if the Empire finds us here." "I know," said Hyunwoo. "Boram, can we turn around?" Boram was still working on her controls, but she looked worried. "The quantum drive is damaged. I can't get it to work properly. It might take hours to fix, maybe days." "We don't have days," said Woo-jin. "The Empire has sensors everywhere. They probably already know we're here." As if he had called it into being, Communications Officer Ji-hai spoke up from her station. "Captain, I'm picking up signals. Lots of them. Empire ships are moving in our direction." "How many ships?" asked Hyunwoo. "I can't tell exactly, but it's a lot. Maybe 50 or more. They're coming from 3 different directions." Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. 50 Empire ships against 1 small research vessel. There was no way to fight. There was no way to run. "What do we do, Captain?" asked Boram. Hyunwoo thought quickly. He had read about the Empire in school, but not much. Most of the information was classified or too old to be useful. What he did know was that they were supposed to be very advanced and very dangerous. "First, we try to fix the ship," he said. "Boram, I need you to work on that quantum drive. Take whoever you need to help you." "Yes, sir." "Tae-jin, try to learn more about where we are. Maybe you can figure out a safe path back to human space." "I'll do my best, Captain." Ji-hee, keep listening to those Empire signals. If they try to talk to us, I want to know immediately." "Understood, sir." "Woo-jin, get the security team ready, but don't do anything aggressive. We're not here to fight." "What if they attack us first?" asked Woo-jin. "Then we defend ourselves. but only if we have no choice. The next few hours were very tense. Boram worked on the broken navigation system while her team helped fix damaged parts. Taejin studied the star charts and tried to figure out exactly where they were. Ji-hye listened to Empire communications, though she couldn't understand most of what they were saying. The Empire ships got closer. Through the main screen, they could see lights in the distance that were definitely not stars. The lights were moving in formation, like a military fleet. "Captain," said Ji-hye, "the Empire ships have stopped. They're keeping their distance, but they're not leaving." "How far away?" "About 6 light hours. They're surrounding us but staying very far back." This was strange. If the Empire wanted to attack or capture them, why stay so far away? Hyunwoo had expected them to come close and demand surrender. "Are they scanning us?" he asked. "Yes, sir. Lots of scanning, but they won't come any closer." "Maybe they're being careful," suggested Taejin. "We might have weapons they don't know about." "We barely have any weapons at all," said Woo-jin. "This is a research ship, not a warship." "They don't know that," said Hyunwoo. More time passed. The Empire ships stayed where they were. More ships arrived, until there were over 100 of them in a big circle around the Defiant Dawn. But still none of them came close. "This doesn't make sense," said Woo-jin. "Why aren't they doing anything?" "I'm picking up a lot of communications between the Empire ships," said Ji-hye. "They seem to be talking to someone far away, maybe their home planet." "Can you understand any of it?" "A little bit. The translation computer recognizes some words. They keep saying something that sounds like Ghostwalkers and the Void Ones. I think they're talking about us." "Ghostwalkers?" asked Taejin. "That's an odd thing to call humans. Maybe it's just their word for humans," said Hyunwoo. But as the hours went by, it became clear that something very unusual was happening. The Empire ships were not acting like a normal military force. They seemed almost afraid to get close. "Captain," said Boram, looking up from her work, "I've got some good news and some bad news." "Give me the bad news first." "The quantum drive is more damaged than I thought. It's going to take at least 3 days to fix, maybe longer." "And the good news?" "The regular engines still work fine. We can move around in normal space." "That's something at least." "There's something else, Captain," said Taejin. "I've been studying the Empire communications that Ji-hye recorded. I think I'm starting to understand why they're staying so far away." "What do you mean?" "I think they're scared of us." Everyone on the bridge looked at him in surprise. "Scared of us?" asked Woo-jin. "We're just one small ship with almost no weapons. They have over 100 warships." "I know it sounds crazy," said Taejin, "but look at the evidence. They won't come close. They keep talking about us like we're ghosts or demons, and listen to this." He played a recording of Empire communications through the speakers. Even though they couldn't understand the words, the tone was clear. The Empire officers sounded worried, maybe even frightened. "Something about humans scares them," said Taejin. "I think that's why we were separated 200 years ago. Not because of war, but because of fear." "Fear of what?" asked Hyunwoo. "I don't know yet, but I think we're about to find out." On the capital planet of the Kaltharian Empire, Emperor Vorthak sat on his crystal throne in the Great Palace. The throne room was huge, with walls that seemed to go on forever. Hundreds of advisors from different alien species stood in neat rows, all waiting for his orders. But today, something was very wrong. Vorthak was old, even by the standards of his species. He had ruled the Empire for over 300 years. In all that time, he had never felt the kind of fear that was growing in his chest right now. "Tell me again," he said to Admiral Keltar, who stood before the throne. "Tell me exactly what happened." Keltar was a tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms. He had been a military commander for most of his life. Today, his hands were shaking. "Your Majesty," said Keltar, "a human ship crossed the border 6 hours ago. It appeared suddenly. In Sector 7G, our sensors detected it immediately." "One ship?" "Yes, Your Majesty. Just one small ship with about 40 crew members." "Then why?" said Vorthak, his voice getting louder. "Do you look like you've seen death itself?" Keltar looked around the throne room. All the other advisors were listening. Many of them looked just as scared as he did. Your Majesty, when our psychic sensors tried to scan the human ship, something terrible happened. The psychics who attempted the scan, they screamed and collapsed. 2 of them are still unconscious. The doctors say their minds have been damaged. A wave of fear went through the throne room. Everyone knew that the Empire was built on psychic connections. All the important species in the Empire could read minds and share thoughts. It was how they communicated across the galaxy. It was how they made decisions together. It was who they were. Impossible, said Vorthak, but his voice was not as strong as before. I wish it were impossible, Your Majesty, said Keltar, but it gets worse. The area around the human ship is creating what our scientists call a dead zone. None of our psychic equipment works there. It's like the humans exist in empty space that our minds cannot touch. Sage Morden stepped forward from the crowd of advisors. He was the Empire's chief scientist, an ancient being whose species lived for thousands of years. His skin was gray and covered with symbols that glowed faintly blue. Your Majesty, said Morden, I must tell you something that I have kept secret for too long. This is not the first time humans have created such dead zones. The throne room became completely silent. What do you mean? Asked Vorthak. 200 years ago, when we first met humans, the same thing happened. The official report said that first contact failed because humans were aggressive and impossible to communicate with. That was not the truth. Vorthak stood up from his throne. Then what was the truth? The truth is that human minds exist in a space that our psychic abilities cannot reach. When our telepaths tried to read human thoughts, it was like trying to grab water with their hands. But worse than that, extended contact with human minds caused permanent damage to our psychic networks. You knew this for 200 years and never told me? The previous emperor ordered all records to be classified. He said the knowledge was too dangerous. If our people knew that there were beings in the universe who were completely immune to our psychic powers, it would destroy our confidence and unity. Vorthak sat back down heavily. The Empire's greatest strength had always been their psychic connection. It allowed them to coordinate fleets across thousands of light years. It let them share knowledge instantly between worlds. It made them feel like one great family instead of just separate species working together. How bad is it? Asked the Emperor. The dead zone around the human ship is growing, said Admiral Keltar. Every hour it stays there, the area where our psychic abilities don't work gets bigger. Communication with our ships in that region is becoming impossible. And if more humans come? Sage Morden looked very grave. If humans return to our space in large numbers, it would effectively end our civilization as we know it. We would lose our ability to think and act as one people. The Empire would fall apart. Another advisor stepped forward. This was General Korath, the head of Empire intelligence. Her species looked like tall, elegant cats that walked on 2 legs. Your Majesty, said Korath, we have been monitoring human space for 200 years. We know that they have grown much stronger since we last met them. They have hundreds of worlds now and thousands of ships. If they decided to invade, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone understood. What do our fleets report? Asked Vorthak. They have surrounded the human ship, said Admiral Keltar. But they cannot get close. Any ship that approaches within a certain distance loses all psychic contact with the rest of the fleet. The captains report that it feels like suddenly becoming blind and deaf. Can we destroy the ship from a distance? We could try, Your Majesty, but there are problems. First, we're not sure our weapons work properly in the dead zone. Second, if we attack without warning, it might be seen as an act of war by the human government. And third, added Sage Morden, destroying the ship might not make the dead zone go away. Our records from 200 years ago show that areas where humans traveled still show psychic interference even after they left. Emperor Vorthak felt older than he had ever felt before. In one day, everything he thought he knew about the universe had changed. For 2 centuries, the Empire had lived in peace and prosperity. Now, one small human ship threatened to destroy everything they had built. What options do we have? And he asked. We could try to communicate with them, suggested General Korath. Maybe we can convince them to leave peacefully. Using normal radio communications instead of telepathy, added Admiral Keltar. It will be slow and difficult, but it might work. Or we could attack them now before the dead zone gets any bigger, said another advisor. That could start a war we cannot win, said Morden. Remember, humans are immune to our greatest weapons. Our psychic attacks would be useless against them. We would have to fight them with regular weapons only, and our records show that humans are very good at regular warfare. Vorthak closed his eyes and tried to think. Around him, he could feel the psychic presence of his advisors. Their minds were full of fear and confusion. For the first time in his long life, he wondered if the Empire was truly as strong as they had always believed. Send a message to the human ship, he finally decided. Use radio communications. Tell them we want to talk. What should we offer them? Asked General Korath. Whatever they want, said Vorthak. Money, technology, entire star systems. Anything to make them leave and never come back. As his advisors hurried to carry out his orders, the Emperor sat alone on his throne. Through the great windows of the palace, he could see the capital city spreading out below him. Millions of beings from dozens of species lived there in harmony, their minds connected by the great psychic network that had made the Empire possible. Now, because of one small human ship, all of that was in danger. Far away in space, Captain Hyunwoo and his crew had no idea of the panic they had caused. They were still trying to fix their ship and figure out why the Empire fleet was keeping its distance. But on the capital world, Emperor Vorthak was learning what his ancestors had tried to forget. That sometimes the most dangerous enemies are not the ones who want to hurt you, but the ones who simply exist in a way that makes your way of life impossible. The humans were not evil or aggressive. They were something much worse than that. They were incompatible with everything the Empire had built its civilization on, and now they were back. Dr. Tae-jin had not slept in 18 hours. He sat at his workstation on the Defiant Dawn, surrounded by screens showing Empire communications data. His eyes were red and tired, but he kept working. Something important was hidden in all these signals, and he was determined to find it. Tae-jin, said Captain Hyunwoo, walking over to him. You need to rest. I can't rest, Captain. Not yet. I'm starting to understand something incredible about what's happening here. Hyunwoo pulled up a chair and sat down next to the scientist. What have you found? Look at this, said Tae-jin, pointing to one of his screens. I've been analyzing the Empire communications for the past day. Most of it is in languages I don't understand, but the translation computer has been learning their patterns. And? They're not talking about attacking us, Captain. They're talking about containing us like we're some kind of dangerous disease that might spread. Hyunwoo frowned. That doesn't make sense. We're just explorers. That's what I thought, too. But listen to this. Tae-jin played a recording through his speakers. The voices were clearly alien, speaking in musical tones that went up and down in strange ways. The computer translated parts of it, said Tae-jin. They keep using phrases like void-bringers and mind-killers and the silence that spreads. They're not afraid we'll shoot them, Captain. They're afraid of something else entirely. Before Hyunwoo could respond, Communications Officer Ji-hai called out from her station. Captain, I'm getting a direct communication from one of the Empire ships. It's in basic trade language. Put it on the main speakers, said Hyunwoo. A new voice filled the bridge. It spoke human words, but with a strange accent that made everything sound formal and careful. Human vessel, this is Admiral Keltar of the Imperial Fleet. We wish to communicate with your leader. Hyunwoo walked to the center of the bridge. This is Captain Hyunwoo of the exploration ship Defiant Dawn. We're listening. There was a long pause before the Empire Admiral responded. Captain Hyunwoo, we must ask you to leave our space immediately. We are prepared to offer you assistance with repairs to your vessel. We'd like to leave, Admiral, but our navigation system is damaged. We need time to fix it. Another long pause. When the Admiral spoke again, his voice sounded strained. How long do you require? At least 2 days, maybe 3. This time the pause was even longer. Finally, the Admiral said, That is problematic. Each day you remain, the situation becomes more difficult. What situation? Asked Hyunwoo. We're not here to cause trouble. We're scientists and explorers. We understand your intentions are peaceful, said the Admiral. But your presence creates complications that you may not be aware of. What kind of complications? We cannot explain over open communications. Please work as quickly as possible on your repairs. The communication ended, leaving everyone on the bridge confused. That was strange, said Commander Woo Jin. He sounded almost desperate. More than that, said Dr. Tae-jin. He sounded scared. Over the next several hours, Tae-jin worked even harder on translating Empire communications. Slowly, a picture began to form. The Empire was not a normal military organization. They seemed to be connected in ways that regular armies were not. Their ships moved together perfectly, like they were controlled by one mind instead of many separate captains. Captain, said Tae-jin finally, I think I understand what's happening. The Empire species are telepathic. They read each other's minds and share thoughts directly. All of them? Most of them, yes. That's how they can coordinate so many ships across such huge distances. They don't need radio communications because they can talk mind to mind. So what does that have to do with us? Asked Hyunwoo. I think human minds are different. I think we exist in a way that telepaths can't reach or understand. To them, we might be like walking dead zones. Lieutenant Bo-ram looked up from her repair work. You mean we're blocking their telepathy just by being here? More than blocking it, said Tae-jin. I think we're damaging it. Look at this data I collected from their communications. He showed them a graph on his screen. This shows the psychic communication levels in this area over the past day. See how they're getting weaker and weaker? The dead zone around our ship is growing. How far does it reach? Asked Hyunwoo. Right now, about 3 light hours in all directions, but it's getting bigger every hour. That explains why their ships stay so far away, said Woo Jin, and why they want us to leave so badly, added Ji-hai. Tae-jin pulled up another screen. But there's more, Captain. I found some older data in their transmissions, references to historical events. I think this has happened before. What do you mean? 200 years ago, the last time humans in the Empire made contact. I don't think it ended because of war or politics. I think it ended because the Empire couldn't handle being around humans. So they kicked us out? More like they exiled us, said Tae-jin. Look at this. He showed them a star map with 2 areas marked in different colors. One area was labeled human space and the other was labeled Empire space. Between them was a wide empty zone with no stars marked at all. This is the neutral zone between our territories, said Tae-jin. It's huge, much bigger than it needs, to be just to prevent military conflicts. I think it exists to keep humans far enough away that we don't interfere with Empire telepathy. But we didn't know any of this, said Hyunwoo. Human history books say first contact failed because of cultural differences. Maybe our governments agreed to keep the real reason secret, suggested Bo-ram. If people knew that we were naturally immune to the most powerful species in the galaxy, it might cause problems. Or make us overconfident, added Woo Jin. Humans might try to invade Empire space thinking we had some kind of advantage. Do we have an advantage? Asked Ji-hee. Tae-jin thought for a moment. Yes and no. We're immune to their telepathy, which is their greatest strength, but we're also stuck using slower forms of communication. They can coordinate 1,000 ships instantly. We have to use radio and computers. Still, said Woo Jin, immunity to mind control is a pretty big advantage. Only if we wanted to fight them, said Hyunwoo. And we don't. The captain walked over to the main screen, which showed the distant lights of the Empire fleet. The question is, what do we do now that we know the truth? We fix the ship and leave as quickly as possible, said Bo-ram, before we cause any more damage. But should we report this when we get home? Asked Ji-hai. Should the human government know that we have this kind of effect on the Empire? I don't know, said Hyunwoo. That's a decision for people much smarter than me. There's something else, Captain, said Tae-jin. Something I found in the deepest parts of their communications. They're not just afraid of us. They're afraid of what we represent. What do you mean? The Empire is built on shared consciousness. All their species think together as one giant mind. To them, we're not just individuals who can't be read. We're proof that consciousness can exist without connection to others. We represent a completely different way of being alive. And that scares them? It terrifies them, said Taejin. Imagine, if you discovered that everything you thought was true about the nature of mind and reality was wrong. That's what we represent to them. The bridge became quiet as everyone thought about this. They were not just dealing with a military or political problem, they were dealing with something much deeper. The very existence of humans challenged the Empire's understanding of life itself. No wonder they want us gone, said Bo-Ram softly. The question is, said Hyunwoo, will they let us leave peacefully, or will they decide we're too dangerous to allow back to human space? Before anyone could answer, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. Ji-hai quickly checked her communications panel. Captain, she said, her voice tight with worry, I'm detecting massive movement in the Empire fleet. Hundreds of new ships are arriving. Are they moving closer? No, sir. But they're forming a much larger circle around us. It looks like they're trapping us. Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. The Empire had just made their decision. The main screen of the Defiant Dawn showed a sight that made everyone's blood run cold. What had started as 50 Empire ships had grown into hundreds, then thousands. They formed perfect circles around the human vessel, layer after layer of warships stretching out into space. How many ships are out there now? Asked Captain Hyunwoo. Communications Officer Ji-hai was working frantically at her station. I've stopped counting at 3,000, Captain. More are arriving every hour. This might be the largest fleet in Empire history. And they're still keeping their distance? Yes, sir. The closest ships are about 4 light hours away. But, Captain, they've completely surrounded us. There's no way out. Dr. Taejin looked up from his data analysis. The dead zone around our ship has grown to 5 light hours in diameter. Every ship that tries to get closer loses all psychic contact with the fleet, so they can't attack us directly, said Commander Woo Jin. They don't need to attack us directly, replied Lieutenant Bo-Ram. They just need to keep us here until we run out of food and air. Hyunwoo sat in his captain's chair, thinking hard. The situation was getting worse every hour. The Empire clearly saw them as a threat, but they also seemed unable or unwilling to destroy them outright. Ji-hee, he said, try to contact Admiral Keltar again. We need to understand what they want. Yes, sir. A few minutes later, the familiar voice of the Empire Admiral filled the bridge. But this time, he sounded different. More formal, and somehow sadder. Captain Hyunwoo, said Admiral Keltar, I have been ordered to speak with you by Emperor Vorthik himself. We're listening, Admiral. The Emperor wishes to make you an offer. In exchange for your immediate departure from Empire space, we are prepared to give you anything you desire. Technology, resources, entire star systems. We can provide you with ships and supplies for your journey home. That's very generous, said Hyunwoo carefully. But as I told you before, our navigation system is damaged. We cannot leave until it's repaired. There was a long silence. When the Admiral spoke again, his voice was strained. Captain, I must be honest with you about our situation. Your presence here is causing problems throughout our territory. What kind of problems? Communication breakdowns. Our psychic networks are failing in a widening area around your ship. Entire star systems are losing contact with the central government. If this continues, our civilization could collapse. The bridge of the Defiant Dawn became very quiet. Everyone understood now why the Empire was so desperate. We're not doing this on purpose, said Hyunwoo. We didn't even know we had this effect on you. I believe you, Captain. But intention does not matter. The effect is the same. How long do we have? Another pause. Our scientists estimate that if your ship remains here for more than 1 week, the damage to our psychic infrastructure will be permanent across dozens of star systems. Millions of our people will be cut off from the galactic community forever. And if we leave? The dead zone might shrink, but it will not disappear completely. Areas where humans have traveled show permanent psychic interference. Hyun-woo felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. His ship wasn't just trapped in enemy space. They were accidentally destroying an entire civilization just by existing. "Admiral," he said, "what happens if we can't fix our ship in time?" The silence that followed was the longest yet. When Admiral Keltar spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Then we will have to make difficult decisions." The communication ended. "He means they'll attack us," said Woo-jin. "Can you blame them?" asked Dr. Taejin. "From their point of view, we're like a disease that's spreading through their territory." "But we're not doing anything wrong," said Bo-ram. "It's not our fault that our minds work differently from theirs." "Tell that to the millions of Empire citizens who are losing their psychic connections," said Ji-hai quietly. Hyun-woo stood up and walked to the main screen. The Empire ships looked like stars now. There were so many of them. Each one represented hundreds or thousands of alien beings who saw his crew as a mortal threat. "Bo-ram," he said, "how long do you really need to fix the navigation system?" "At least 4 days, Captain, maybe 5. The quantum drive core is completely fried. I have to rebuild it from spare parts." "Can you work faster if you had help from Empire engineers?" Bo-ram looked surprised. "Well, yes, probably. But they can't get close enough to help without entering the dead zone." "What if we found a way around that problem?" Dr. Taejin looked up with interest. "What are you thinking, Captain?" "I'm thinking that maybe there's a solution that doesn't involve anyone dying." "Taejin, you said the dead zone is caused by human consciousness, right?" "That's my theory, yes. So what if we could control it somehow? Make it smaller or change its shape?" "I don't know if that's possible, Captain. We don't really understand how it works." "Then we need to learn fast." Over the next several hours, the crew of the Defiant Dawn worked on the most important research project of their lives. Taejin analyzed every bit of data he could find about human psychic effects on the Empire. Bo-ram studied the ship's systems to see if technology might be amplifying or controlling their natural abilities. Ji-hai monitored Empire communications to track the growing crisis. What they learned was both fascinating and terrifying. "Captain," said Taejin, "I think I understand how this works. Human consciousness operates on quantum frequencies that interfere with telepathic brain patterns. It's not something we do deliberately. It's just how our minds are built. Can we change it? Not permanently, but I think we might be able to modulate it, like turning the volume up or down on a radio." "How?" "The ship's computer systems might be amplifying our natural psychic interference. If I could modify the neural network interfaces, we might be able to create a kind of psychic tunnel. A narrow area where Empire telepaths could work without being affected." Bo-ram looked excited. "You mean they could send engineers to help fix our ship?" "Theoretically, yes. But it would be very dangerous. If the tunnel collapsed while Empire personnel were inside the dead zone, they could be permanently damaged." "Would the Empire be willing to take that risk?" asked Hyun-woo. "I don't know," said Ji-hai. "But their situation is getting desperate. Listen to this." She played the latest Empire communications through the speakers, even though they couldn't understand the words. The voices sounded panicked and confused. "3 more star systems have gone dark," said Taejin, translating what he could. "The Empire is starting to fracture. Some regions are talking about declaring independence because they can't communicate with the central government." "How much time do we have?" asked Hyun-woo. "Maybe 2 days before the Empire decides they have no choice but to attack us." Hyun-woo made his decision. "Contact Admiral Keltar. Tell him we have a proposal." When the communication link opened, the Admiral sounded even more stressed than before. "Captain Hyun-woo, I hope you are calling to tell me your ship is ready to depart." "Not yet, Admiral. But we think we've found a way to solve both our problems. We want to propose a joint operation." "What kind of operation?" "We think we can create a small area around our ship where your people can work without being affected by the dead zone. Your engineers could help us fix our navigation system much faster than we can do it alone." There was a long pause. "You would allow Empire personnel aboard your ship?" If it means we can all get out of this situation alive, yes. And you believe this psychic tunnel would protect our people? We think so. But Admiral, I have to be honest with you, this is experimental. There are risks. Everything we do now involves risks, Captain. Let me discuss this with the Emperor. The next few hours were the longest of Hyunwoo's life. The fate of two civilizations might depend on whether one desperate plan could work. Emperor Vorthak stood in his private chamber, looking out at the stars through a massive window. For the first time in 300 years of rule, he felt truly helpless. Reports were coming in from across the empire. Entire sectors had gone silent. The great psychic network that held his civilization together was falling apart. Your Majesty, said Admiral Keltar, entering the chamber. The human captain is waiting for your decision. This plan of theirs? Said Vorthak without turning around. Do you think it will work? Our scientists have reviewed their proposal. Sage Mordoon believes there is a chance, though the risks are enormous. What risks? If the psychic tunnel fails while our people are working on their ship, the engineers could suffer permanent mental damage. They might lose their telepathic abilities forever. Vorthak finally turned to face his admiral. And if we do nothing? The dead zone will continue to spread. Within days, half our empire will be cut off from psychic communication. The government will collapse. Then we have no choice. There is one other option, Your Majesty. Admiral Keltar hesitated before continuing. We could attack the human ship with overwhelming force, destroy it before the dead zone spreads any further, and start a war with the entire human race? The humans don't know what happened here yet. We could destroy their ship and claim it was an accident. A navigation failure, perhaps. Vorthak considered this for a moment. It would solve the immediate problem. The dead zone would stop growing. The empire would be safe. But the thought of murdering innocent explorers made him feel sick. No, he said finally. We are not killers. We will try the human plan. 1 hour later, the most unusual cooperation in galactic history began. Dr. Tae-jin worked frantically to modify the Defiant Dawn's computer systems, while Sage Mordoon, communicating by radio from a distant Empire ship, provided guidance on telepathic frequencies. The neural network interfaces need to be recalibrated, said Mordoon through the speakers. His voice was old and wise, but strained with worry. If you can create a resonance pattern that matches our psychic wavelengths, it might form a protective corridor. I'm trying, said Tae-jin, his hands moving quickly over the control panels. But this is all theoretical. We're basically building a psychic shield out of computer parts. Lieutenant Boram was preparing the engineering bay for Empire visitors. Captain, are you sure about this? If something goes wrong, those alien engineers could die. I know, said Captain Hyunwoo. But if we don't try, millions of Empire citizens will lose their psychic connections permanently, and they'll probably attack us out of desperation. The tunnel is ready, announced Tae-jin. At least I think it is. Through the main screen, they could see a single Empire ship approaching. It was much smaller than the warships, obviously, designed for engineering work rather than combat. As it got closer to the dead zone, everyone held their breath. Empire vessel, this is Captain Hyunwoo. How are you feeling? The response came in accented human language. This is Engineer Veltar. We are still connected to the fleet. The psychic tunnel appears to be working. A cheer went up on the bridge of the Defiant Dawn, but the celebration was short-lived. Wait, said Veltar, his voice suddenly worried. Something is wrong. The tunnel is fluctuating. We're losing telepathic contact. I'm adjusting the frequencies, said Tae-jin quickly. His screens showed wild fluctuations in the psychic field around the ship. Tunnel is stable again, reported Veltar. Proceeding to dock. The next few hours were tense as Empire engineers worked alongside Boram to repair the quantum drive. The psychic tunnel held, but barely. Tae-jin had to constantly adjust the settings to keep it from collapsing. How much longer? Asked Hyunwoo. 6 hours, maybe 8, said Boram. The Empire engineers know their stuff. With their help, we can rebuild the entire drive core. But they didn't have 8 hours. Captain, said Communications Officer Jihai urgently. I'm detecting movement in the Empire fleet. A large group of ships is breaking formation and heading toward us. How many ships? About 200. They're not responding to Admiral Keltar's orders. On the radio, they could hear Keltar trying to contact the rogue ships. His voice was angry and desperate. Admiral Korvek, return to position immediately. You are violating direct orders from the Emperor. A new voice answered, cold and determined. Admiral Keltar, you are allowing aliens to destroy our civilization. We will not stand by and watch the Empire die because of your weakness. The Emperor has approved this operation. The Emperor is old and afraid. We are not. Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. The Empire fleet was splitting apart. Some ships wanted to try the cooperation plan, but others had decided to attack. How long until they reach us? He asked. 4 hours, said Jihai. Boram, can you finish the repairs before then? I don't know, Captain. We're working as fast as we can. The next 3 hours passed in a blur of desperate activity. Empire engineers worked alongside human crew members, racing to repair the quantum drive before the rogue fleet arrived. The psychic tunnel flickered on and off as Taejin struggled to keep it stable. Captain, said Commander Wu Jin, we should prepare to defend ourselves. With what? We have almost no weapons and they have 200 warships. Maybe the dead zone will protect us. Their weapons might not work properly inside it. Or maybe they'll work just fine and we'll all die. With 1 hour left, Boram made an announcement that changed everything. Captain, the quantum drive is repaired, but there's a problem. The psychic interference from the tunnel is preventing the navigation computer from working properly. We can either maintain the tunnel or we can navigate, but we can't do both. So if we drop the tunnel to leave, the Empire engineers will be trapped in the dead zone. Their minds will be permanently damaged. Hyunwoo closed his eyes. Either they abandoned the Empire engineers to save themselves, or they stayed and fought a battle they couldn't win. There has to be another way, he said. Captain, said Dr. Taejin suddenly. What if we don't drop the tunnel? What if we expand it? What do you mean? The dead zone is created by human consciousness, right? But it's not just random interference, it's organized, structured. What if we could reshape it into a weapon? You want to weaponize our psychic field? Not to hurt anyone. But maybe we could create a focused burst of psychic interference, something that would disable the attacking ships without killing the crews. Can you do that? I don't know. But I'm willing to try. The attacking Empire ships arrived 30 minutes later. Admiral Korvek's voice filled the radio channels. Human vessel, you will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Admiral Korvek, said Hyunwoo, we are trying to help your people. The engineers working on our ship will die if you attack us. Better that a few die than our entire civilization. You're making a mistake. The mistake was made 200 years ago when we let your species live. The Empire ships began charging their weapons. On the screens of the Defiant Dawn, energy signatures spiked as the attack fleet prepared to fire. Taejin, asked Hyunwoo. Ready, Captain, but I don't know what this will do. Fire, the psychic burst that erupted from the Defiant Dawn, was invisible, but its effects were immediate and dramatic. Every Empire ship within 6 light hours suddenly went dark. Their engines stopped. Their weapons powered down. Their communication systems fell silent, but the crews were still alive. The psychic pulse had simply overloaded their telepathic systems, forcing them into emergency shutdown mode. My God, whispered Jihai. It worked. Empire engineers, are you all right? Asked Hyunwoo. We are fine, came the reply from Engineer Veltar. The psychic tunnel protected us from the pulse. Navigation system is online, reported Boram. We can leave any time. But Hyunwoo didn't give the order to depart. Instead, he did something that surprised everyone. All hands, prepare to assist Empire vessels. We're not leaving until we help repair the ships we disabled. Captain? Asked Wu Jin. They attacked us, but they were afraid for their civilization. I understand that. We're going to show them that humans can be trusted. Over the next day, The crew of the Defiant Dawn worked with loyal Empire forces to repair the ships that had been disabled by the psychic pulse. It was dangerous work, requiring constant adjustments to the psychic tunnel, but slowly, the Empire fleet was restored to working order. When the last ship was repaired, Admiral Keltar contacted the human vessel one final time. "Captain Hyunwoo," he said, "what you have done today will not be forgotten. You could have left us disabled and escaped. Instead, you chose to help. We're explorers, Admiral. Our job is to build bridges, not burn them. The Emperor wishes to establish formal communication protocols between our peoples. Perhaps in time we can find a way to coexist, despite our differences. We'd like that very much." The Defiant Dawn finally departed Empire space 3 days later. As they crossed back into the neutral zone, Captain Hyunwoo stood on the bridge looking at the stars ahead. "Think we'll see them again?" asked Dr. Tae-jin. "Maybe, but next time we'll be ready for each other." "And next time," added Boram, "we'll make sure our navigation system works properly." Everyone laughed, but it was nervous laughter. They all understood that they had witnessed something historic. Two completely different forms of consciousness had met, clashed, and found a way to survive each other.